welcome to Grounded with Jon Tester and Maritza Giorgio. It's been a minute, Senator, and people have been saying, hey, where's John? We haven't seen John. Is he okay? So we figured we better get on and do some tractor time with Tester.
Yeah, 'tis the season. Yeah,
Tell us what you're doing.
we're putting in peas. We're so I'm organic, so we seed half the place to peas every year so that I have something to plow down for nitrogen.
All right, that's what you use for your fertilizer.
Yep.
All right, are you having a good time or are you having a bad time?
Well, considering I just had two flues plug up, not so good.
Okay. Well, we will try to let's hopefully we can send you some good farming juju while we do this episode. Today we have Ellie Leonard joining us. There was quite a big kerfuffle this week related to Jeffrey Epstein, Senator. If you're wondering why we called this episode "Be Careful with Me, Bitch," we will explain that, but it has to do with some bizarre social media posts and Melania Trump. So we plan to unpack all of that with Ellie, but let's go over some headlines first. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right, first off, some news that came down just a short time ago. Viktor Orban conceded defeat in Hungary's elections today. Voters turning out in the greatest numbers since the 1990s. This ends 16 years of his far right authoritarian rule. And just days after our VP, JD Vance, was there stumping for him. Now, here's what's important, folks. Voters came out in numbers big enough to make it a sound defeat, and European leaders are celebrating right now.
Yeah, well, what makes me wonder is why is JD Vance over there advocating for a right-wing fascist? That's the question. What's he doing? I mean, is this their mode of operation here? Maybe it's a sign of what's to come. We can only hope.
Yeah, we will see. People are saying that though. Hakeem Jeffries put out a tweet similar saying, "This is just the start. Wait till November here." Um,
Y And look,
Speaking of,
it's what it's about is people's freedoms, and people be able to have freedoms and not have an outfit like ICE come through their door without a warrant or shoot people for accusations that never happened because the cameras don't lie. And so, um, the thing about it is here's what upsets me about all this, Maritza. If the president knew better, which he doesn't, but he's got a bunch of people around him. The folks who wrote the Project 2025, they're around him. They're telling him what to do, and he's the village idiot. He's doing it. Okay, and those people know better. You know that when Peter Thiel said, business doesn't work good in democracy, that tells me a lot right there. Those billionaires that are running the show right now in the White House, and they don't like democracy, and they're trying to change it. And thank God Orban's gone, and hopefully it is a sign of things to come.
it's pretty remarkable. I was actually stunned when I opened up the headline. But speaking of JD Vance, he after he was in Hungary, he then went on to Pakistan to hold peace talks with Iranian officials there face to face. Well, after 21 hours, came out and said they did not reach a peace deal. And Vance said the main sticking point is that Iran is not willing to give up nuclear ambitions. Well, you can imagine what came next from the president. I'm going to try something new here and share my screen on Substack. So the president put out, along with a fake image of Bruce Springsteen, I'll tell you, he went on a rant about these failed talks. He said, since Iran didn't open the Strait of Hormuz, well, now we, the United States, are going to block any and all ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, it reminds me of somebody saying, no, you can't break up with me. I'm breaking up with you. And then let me also add that while all of this was happening, that's where the president was. And I should mention Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Shit, I don't know. Playing golf? I don't know.
They were watching a UFC fight in Miami,
They were watching what?
a UFC fight
Oh, great. Well, that's
in
great.
Miami. So that's what happened. Hey,
Do,
Ellie
do
Leonard's
you
with us. Hello.
do you remember when Barack Obama went golfing? You remember that? What? How that was the end of the world because he wasn't tending to business? Remember
I
that? I
remember
remember
when
that.
he
Did
I
he?
remember when he wore a tan suit.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, well, I wonder who won the UFC fight. Not that I give a shit, but I wonder who won it.
No, I was just like, "Oh, my mom is gonna call me about the UFC now, isn't she?" Like, she doesn't know anything about the UFC, but we're gonna have that phone conversation.
What is she gonna say? What do you mean? What do you think she'll say?
Because she's older and she's kinda drawn in, and, like, everything that doesn't apply to anything that she knows at all, she'll all of a sudden be interested. So, like, if there's a UFC fight with Trump, she's like, "Oh, so did you catch the UFC fight?" And I'm like, "No, of course I didn't. Like, we've never watched UFC." And my dad's like, "Do you even know what UFC is? Like, they fight until they're, like, almost dead." And she's like, "Oh, really?"
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, this UFC fight was a big draw apparently for the president and the Secretary of State to be at while we were negotiating a peace deal with Iran. Ellie, you can see that we have Jon Tester on the tractor. He's showing off.
Hi, Jon
Yeah.
Tester.
Hi, Ellie. How you doing?
Good. It's good to see you on the tractor. What are you cutting?
Well, we're planting peas is what we're doing,
Planting
and so
peas.
yeah, we're planting peas, and so the real question is has anything been going on this week with Melania Trump?
Well, hold on. We're
Well,
not there yet. We're not there yet,
I
Senator. You're
left
getting
town.
ahead of me.
Come on, I can't wait. I can't
All right,
wait.
I have
The
one more
president.
I think
headline for Ellie
okay.
that actually wanted her to join in on for this headline.
Okay.
So, Senator, the calls keep coming in for Representative Eric Swalwell to drop out of California's gubernatorial race. Some Democrats also calling on him to resign from Congress, including many Republicans too. This is after an ex-staffer accused him of raping her, prompting other women to then come forward to share other stories of sexual assault and unwanted advances. Now, Swalwell denies any wrongdoing. He released a video statement saying that the stories are just plain false. Now, there are also calls at the same time to remove Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez from the House, also, who admitted to having an affair with a staffer who later died by suicide. So,
Yes, I know that story.
Senator, what do you make of this?
Well, I think a bad
Oh, goodness.
judgment, and how's that for being
Yeah.
less than critical? No, bad judgment, and I hope everybody that asks him to resign from Congress because it's the right thing to do. Ask the pedophile that's in the White House to resign from the White
Mhm.
House too, because the bottom line is that what Swalwell did was wrong, but there shouldn't be a double standard. Uh, Same should apply to the president of the United States and the rest
Right.
of his cronies, by the way, that went over there and broke the law and now set in positions, or at least did set, some of them retired, in positions of power. So I think Swalwell is an indication of somebody who's extremely bad judgment. And like I say, I'm being generous when I say that. But there's a lot of folks using bad judgment in Washington, D.C. right now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Ellie, what did you think when this all came down? I mean, really, it's been being chatted about for a bit.
Yeah.
Several people
Yeah.
online
Well, have they determined if those videos are real, those 2 videos that came out?
I haven't seen any verification of that.
Okay, okay. Well, then I'll
There were
I'll
some videos.
despite the videos, I think this is a really great opportunities for Democrats to put their money where their mouth is and say, you know, we prosecute our own people, we prosecute Republicans, we prosecute anybody, and we follow up and we investigate things thoroughly. And the whole idea, like I think the FBI had a Twitter post today where they were just like, we take sexual assault really seriously and we will go after anybody who's accused of sexual assault. And I was like, are you got to be kidding me?
You,
Like, yes.
you know what
Yes.
they call that where I come from?
What?
Horseshit.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right. They're like Cash Patel will get you. It's like, really? Really, really?
Well,
Because go ahead.
yeah, I think that's the whole thing here. Like, this isn't okay from anybody.
Right.
From anybody. So, I
And it's
think you're right, Democrats
stupid.
have an opportunity to say no, like, to set the right tone, but I also think Republicans need to set the right, like, this should be just widely condemned by
Right.
everybody when these allegations come out.
Yeah.
There's no, "Well, he's on my team," or "He's on my team." Uh, well, this is just wrong. We're not gonna do
Right.
this, and why are we continuing to do this shit?
Right. And like just I mean and let's say hypothetically, and this is not what I think this probably is a legitimate case, but let's say hypothetically it totally wasn't true. Let's just say, or for anybody who comes forward, thoroughly investigate every accusation, and you thoroughly investigate every accusation equally and to the full extent of the law. Like, it shouldn't be like we're going to investigate you, but we're not going to investigate you. Like, if somebody is accused of sexual assault by multiple people, by one person, and there's a fair amount of evidence and people are following up, like, that should be investigated. And if it comes to light that it's true, it's being prosecuted, like, it doesn't matter. And also, I think I was hearing like that these instances were happening in the height of Me Too, which I find incredibly stupid. And like, I get that during that time there were people where we went like, should those people be canceled? But oh, these people really should be canceled. Like, do we really want to? I don't know. I don't know. It's frustrating, but I think it's idiotic. I think that we need to start figuring out why people in power keep doing this. I think I know why people in power keep doing this. But like, again, call me sexist. There's not a lot of women being accused of sexual assault. You know what I mean? Like, maybe pass the torch a little bit.
What? Why do you think people do it?
I think
Washington? Go ahead.
I think when you have a certain amount of money and power and you're patted on the back a few thousand times, you start to think that you're entitled to things and you start to think the law doesn't apply to you and morality and ethics don't apply to you and you can just have what you want and you see your buddy has what he wants and you start to have what your buddy wants. And like, I just think that people lose their minds when they're told they're special however many times, right? I don't think it's normal. I think people need to have integrity, keep their feet on the ground, have a normal paycheck, and do good work. But like when you're handed these multi-million-dollar whatever deals because you're now a famous person as a politician, like politicians didn't used to be famous. Now they're like celebrities. Um, you start to think you get all the things, and all the things include sexually abusing people and thinking that it's okay.
But she answered it pretty clearly. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
people think they're above the law, and that then they start doing shit tells you their true character.
Yeah. I mean, I have my own theories too, but I think there is like, you know, an inferiority complex that goes along with some of
Mhm.
this. And, once you get into power, all of a sudden things that maybe weren't available to you are. And,
Yeah,
so Ellie, you're on vacation and you're joining us. So thank
yeah.
you.
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
for that. For those people who don't know, I don't know how, I bet everybody here knows who you are, but I'll just say Ellie Leonard is just this most amazing writer who has
Hey.
she's kind of dug into the Epstein files along with her incredible grassroots community, and together they are just going through one by one and looking for whatever they can find to try to get some justice and shed light on what's happening. So, Senator Tester, you say your question. Now's the time for your question.
Well, I had heard that maybe Melania made some news.
What?
Now I've been on
What?
the tractor. I've been on the tractor, and somebody said she had a press conference to talk about Epstein, and I thought it was kind of ironic that the president has spent $50 billion in a war in Iran to try to keep people from talking about Epstein, and then Melania holds a press conference to talk about Epstein. She must not like Donald very much, but can you shed some light as to why she would have a press conference on Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I believe that they're trying to get ahead of something. What that something is, we have multiple options, right? We have Amanda Ungaro, is that how you pronounce her last name? Ungaro, who was the wife of Paolo Zampoli, who claims to have a lot of information on Melania. I will say there are many people who used to be in Melania's social circle who really, really, really want to talk. I've come across people, I've read about people, like there's a lot of people who used to be good friends with her who seem to be ready to speak up because they've been shut out or they've, lost status or whatever reason. and she has basically shut them out, or she is saying things that they know are not true. And so I know that people have come forward either behind the scenes or in the public, but Amanda is one of those people. So that's sort of like door number one. There could be something that we don't know, that she's about to say. But then again, she like pulled down all her, her Twitter posts and all that. So it's like I'm sure people are trying
We'll
to
talk
get
a
to
little
her.
bit about that. We lost Jon Tester.
Yeah.
He's in a field, but I'm gonna add him back, he'll join us
He's
next
doing peas.
time. So here's what I thought was so weird about that,
Mhm.
Ellie. The press corps, like the White House press corps,
Mhm.
they showed up for this and had no clue what they were showing up for.
Right.
And
Right.
then she went on for 6 minutes, and it's like, to go out and say, "Hey, I just want you all to know this thing that you're not talking about because 'cause you're talking about the war in Iran. We're gonna talk
Mhm.
about it again, and I'm gonna tell you I have nothing to do with it."
Right. And I don't think the idea that Trump didn't know that, I don't think is true, because I don't think she does anything without permission. Like, he knows everything that's gonna happen before it happens. So it's kinda like, why? My take on it was probably pretty different when I first heard that, because I wasn't thinking about Amanda in that
Mm,
moment. I was
no.
thinking about that she said the Daily Beast. She mentioned the Daily Beast. And I know, because this has been my like shtick for a long time, is that Michael Wolff is trying to like rebuild his persona, which I personally don't believe is possible, because behind the scenes his relationship with Epstein is pretty clear. But he has all these, recordings of Epstein. And in those recordings, Epstein freely talked about Donald Trump. Like, he had no problem talking about Donald Trump. And so he has recordings of him saying that, Epstein introduced Melania to Trump. He has recordings saying Epstein or Donald Trump had sex with Melania on Epstein's plane. Like, he has all that. We can decide whether we think that that's true, that Epstein said that or not. But like, he really didn't have, in that moment, he didn't really have a reason to lie. Um, but, like, that's where my head went, was those
Mhm.
recordings, because, like, I've been on Michael Wolff pretty hard lately. I don't know if he knows that. It's fine if he doesn't know that. But I think he does know that, because I've talked with Joanna Coles. And I think that I don't think he will ever willingly release all those audio recordings. He has 100 hours. But I think he's getting nervous, because there is so much information about their relationship that he wants to get ahead of it. And he keeps writing these articles about being like the Epstein whisperer. And I really think he has something that he's trying to release. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but like, I don't think that I am. I think that's probably coming.
Well, it kind of just begs the question, right? I mean, there's been such a push to release these files
Hmm.
and get information and get to the bottom of this once and for all. So if there are all these hours of recordings,
Hmm.
like, and you have information,
Yeah.
the point is about justice, right? The point is about giving a voice to the survivors and telling what you know. I mean, we say that all the time. If you know something, say something. So that's just the bizarre part to me, is why wouldn't you
Right.
give
It's
permission?
logical. Right. And when you talk to his supporters, it's the continued like, well, nobody wants these audio files, which is it's impossibly untrue. But also when you read his emails, I mean, there's 1,800 pages of emails. He did not care about the survivors in those emails. Michael Wolff did not care about the survivors. He thought that they were lying. He was trying to help Epstein revamp his image through a documentary, through a biography, through media help. He had a PR person that he was hiring for him. He was doing everything to squelch news articles about Epstein. But he also thought that people during the Me Too movement were like out of their minds, and that these men were being taken down unfairly. Like, it's a very clear conversation. And so I think at this point, I'm surprised that nobody in law enforcement is asking for those interviews. That's concerning to me, because I think that would be logical. But I think at this point, he's probably a little bit afraid to release the interviews, because if they're anything like his emails, then they out the things that he believes too, and not just Epstein and not just Donald Trump. But again, if you have somebody who's the head of a crime syndicate and you have 100 hours of interviews with them, like, you get the interviews, because there's
Yeah,
not
why
going to be
yeah,
nothing. Yeah.
right. I think the other part about this was, at first I thought, well, wow, the first lady mentioned the survivors, right, of
Mhm.
women and said they deserve their day in Congress, but then they all kind of stepped up, many of them at least said, "No, we've done our part.
Right.
It's time for the justice system to step up."
Right.
So,
Mhm.
like, what do you make of that? What like, why would
Yeah.
she say that part and
Because
not
it's like the buzzy thing to say, like, that they're gonna go in and save the day, and it's like, that is not their responsibility. Everybody keeps asking the survivors to, like, come up with their own list of all these bad guys, and it's like, people don't realize the level of legal repercussions that these women face every time they out somebody. They don't have enough legal coverage. They have lawyers, they have pro bono lawyers, but they do not have enough legal representation to go against the powerful legal teams of these people, these billionaires, right? And so, us asking them to continually put themselves out there to risk their homes, their families, their jobs, their privacy to save themselves for something that they never did to themselves in the first place is ludicrous. Like, they do deserve to sit back and rest and see the justice system do its job, but it continually denies that. It continually says that we're not going to do that for you. And we saw that, the most when Pam Bondi was in Congress and the
Mhm.
survivors were sitting behind them and she wouldn't even look at them. I mean, that said a
Yeah, she
lot.
said she wasn't gonna get in the gutter for theatrics. I mean, that was, just a
It was
shocking
sick. Yeah, it was pretty sick.
shocking words to choose.
Yeah.
Okay, so to explain our title, I had, like, anxiety about it 'cause I was like, "Oh, no, what if they think I'm talking about Ellie?" The title. The title is "Be Careful With Me, Bitch," and it was a line that was written
Right.
in a series of posts on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it, by former friend of Melania, Amanda
Yes.
Ungaro, who you mentioned, Ellie. So, just for some background for our viewers here, she was the partner to Trump confidant Paolo Zampoli. They have a child together. Now, this is the same
Mhm.
Paolo Zampoli who was named envoy for global partnerships and just happened to be on this JD Vance trip to Hungary this week when he stumped for Viktor Orban. Okay.
Mhm.
This guy,
Yep.
the mother of his child, is named Amanda Ungaro, and she was friends with Melania. There are lots of pictures of her with Melania. So after she and Paolo split, she was arrested on suspicion of workplace fraud. Now, when Zampoli learned of this, the New York Times reports that he called in a favor for ICE to arrest her, Amanda Ungaro. She was ultimately deported, and now she's in Brazil. And so the day before Melania came out and held this impromptu, unknown statement at the White House with the White House press corps, Amanda Ungaro went on X, Twitter, and she went after the First Lady in a series of
Mhm.
replies to the First Lady's former official account. She threatened Melania. She said she'll basically burn it all down. She has nothing to lose. And she said, "Be careful with me, bitch." And those tweets, Ellie, have all been taken down now.
Yeah. I'm sure she's been approached by Trump's people in the last few days and threatened. I mean, there's no way that she hasn't. Um, but I mean, I think we think of Melania as being sort of powerless to Trump, but she has power. Like, she has power to make things happen. And when you have a woman whose ex-partner separates her from her child, like, think of the level of anger and, like, spitfire. I mean, if it were you or I, if somebody was like,
Right.
"Sorry, we're separating you from your child," like, we would burn it all down, right? And that's what she's doing. She's burning it all down because Melania has the opportunity to stop that from happening and to get in the way of her husband and say, "No, this is not going to happen. I'm going to save you." But if she doesn't, if she chooses not to let this woman see her child and come back to the US, then she's like, "Well, then fine. All these secrets that you kept with me, all this stuff that I know about you, this entire history that has been lied about in the White House, well, I'm gonna talk about that because if that's what it takes for me to see my child, then I'm gonna burn it all down." And that's what she's doing.
Yeah, we should mention too that Paolo Zampoli is the person that it says he introduced Melania
Yeah.
to Trump, and he then, after this series of tweets, he came out and said, like, "I'll go before Congress and I'll testify to
Mhm.
that." So that was like a weird insertion too of himself. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people are
Well,
coming up and go
he
ahead.
hopped on a podcast the other day. Like, he called into a podcast and was like, "Hey, I'll go to
But
Congress." I mean, it's just like, whole ordeal of if he introduced Melania Trump or if Epstein introduced, and it's kind of like a moot point to me because they were all hanging out at the same parties. They may have been all in the same conversation at the same time. It's a bunch of rich scuzbags introducing young models to billionaires. Like, and if you look at Melania's history and how she came to the US despite her age. It started long before she got to the US. It was the same path that they bring the women through. It's the Einstein visa program. It is through the art school. She was 15 years old when she moved out of her parents' house and moved into art school, and that's when they start grooming you. Like, it's the exact same path that these women came through for Epstein. So it's like all these men were aware of it. The entire modeling industry was aware of it. Like, if we did a full investigation of all of this, it should include the modeling industry because that was absolutely the door for child sex trafficking. I mean, every girl who came through who was from Eastern Europe was not 18 years old. I mean, they were 15, 13, 14, right? They were brought over here. Their parents did not come with them. It was considered like a really great opportunity for their kids to come to America and be great. So they didn't go with them. And they were all sex trafficked, like every single one of them. And they were saying, if you look at Paolo Zampoli's record and all these women that he brought across, and you look at where they went, none of them ever got modeling jobs. Like, they didn't actually go into the modeling industry, and there was no record of it ever actually working out. And it's like, that stuff needs to be investigated. I've known his name since I started researching this stuff, and nobody's ever wanted to talk to him. He's highly involved in this case. And yet now he's with JD Vance in Hungary right now, right? Like, he's just like anybody who's towing the line is like, "I'm gonna go get close to Trump right now," because he's like, nobody can touch him.
Well, and she was set to do this interview, and it came out today with this, Spanish outlet, and it really didn't offer any new revelations here, but she
Right.
did talk about being on Epstein's plane
Mhm.
with very young girls, 14, 15, 16, 17, and feeling discomfort with that as part of this whole modeling, empire that you're talking about. And while she took those tweets down going after Melania, she did put out some new ones today, and let me I'm trying this new feature that Substack launched where we can
Okay.
share screens here, but let me share this. So this is, these are some of the things that she put out, but they're going after they're actually screenshots of Zampoli's name
Mhm.
in the Epstein files. And this video, is an Instagram video that she shared, and it basically said that, like, what does Zampoli have on Trump? And then she
Right.
shared these email screenshots from him to her, and
Mhm.
then, then she shared this email right here, and it
Yeah.
says, "From Jeffrey Epstein," and he wrote in 2011, "Be
Mhm.
careful, Zampoli is trouble, lots."
Yep.
So, I mean, she's still
Mhm.
talking. She just quit talking about Melania.
Right, and I can almost guarantee you she'll be back in the US with legal paperwork in probably the next week because that's probably what Melania offered her. So she can keep talking about Zampoli, but she probably can't talk about Melania or Trump.
Oh.
So I would wait. I mean, I can't guarantee that that's what's gonna happen, but my guess is that that was the way they countered what she was doing. So
I want everyone to know I have tried to reach out to Senator Tester to say, "Are you coming back on?" He's been fighting with his tractor all day because here's the farming, lesson. He had a bunch of rain last year, and so all these weeds have been growing in the fields, and they keep clogging up his tractor. So, he's been fighting with weeds in the field, but he will probably join us, and we will get that, tractor time with Tester again by the end of the show, I hope. Okay, so Ellie, um, I do wanna ask you a little bit about, the way these news cycles work, right? I mean, we really didn't hear Epstein at the top of headlines for many weeks because of the war in Iran. Um, and now we have the Eric Swalwell stuff taking over headlines. So how do we make sure that all of these cases stay relevant and in the spotlight,
Right,
and we don't let
right.
one overtake the other, and how do we keep this Epstein story in the spotlight?
Well, I mean, that is the power of numbers, and that's the power of social media for, us as tough as social media can be, like, we have millions of people who are digging through the files, who are paying attention to things, who are picking things out that matter that, not everybody's gonna get their eyes on, and to keep posting them and reposting them and figuring out what's, like, the good hashtags to use so that eyes get on your posts, that is the power of numbers, and that what has been working for me and for my Substackers is, like, all working together. It's the idea of crowdsourcing. I know if you're still on Twitter, Twitter is not the best place for that because things get shadow banned and your posts will just disappear. But Threads is still really good despite it being part of Meta. Blue Sky is amazing, and Substack's really good. And so the things that you find, keep talking about them. The stories that you like, that you see other like independent journalists writing that are really good and really dig to the core of this, share them as much as possible, share them on all your social media sites, share them with your family, share them on um, Facebook. But like continue to share information because like when they say the news cycle is not talking about Epstein, that's basically legacy news, right? That's different than independent journalism. Independent journalism has stayed the course.
Mm.
I don't think we've ever stopped talking about Epstein. I know when people are like, "What?" I'll read a Threads post somewhere, and they'll be like, "Why did we stop talking about Epstein?" And I want to be like, "What are you talking about? Like,
That's all I
we're
talk
still
about.
doing it.
Yeah.
It's all we're doing."
Yeah.
And so just keep sharing things because that helps the algorithm grow and pay attention. There's survivors who are on these social media sites who need their things shared. I know that Jess Michaels is working really hard to share a lot of information about these files, and she's been really at the forefront of a lot of this. And so when you see things posted by them, continue to share those posts. But like this is an engine that is not going to stop at this point, and a war is not going to stop us, and other cases are not going to stop us. That should fuel us when we see something with Eric Swalwell. That should fuel the importance of why this matters because that's a case that's like happening right now. And if we're so excited to jump on that and prosecute that, then we need to pay attention to the cases that they didn't prosecute that deserve as much attention. And so just staying the course. Like and I know we burn out. Like I burn out. I have days when I'm just like, huh, I need everybody to just like take this for a minute, and I'm gonna go walk over here. But then come back to it and just continue to share and speak about it and handle it in a way that you can do that's not harmful for yourself. I know we all approach this from different angles, but to continue to keep the story in the spotlight is really important.
So you burn out and then your jerk friend writes you on vacation.
No, no, no. I was
It's
burning out a little. I mean, I also come from Montana farmers, and so like I burn out from having a vacation pretty quickly because I'm just like I'm not like I every time I get on my computer when my kids go to sleep at night, I'll do a little bit of digging. I mean, it's just
yeah,
I'm
it's
digging.
just
It's what
part
I
of
do.
your day now.
And every time I post something, people are like, "Just rest, like be on
Yeah.
vacation," and I'm like, "I can't, I can't
Well,
do that."
because you know it's important, because the
Yeah,
work you're doing is so important and it's
yeah.
actually making an impact for people. It
Mhm.
is.
Yeah, well, I hope, yeah.
Of course it is. Yeah, I mean, if you
Thank
all I have
you.
to do is look in the comments and everybody's, "We love Ellie, we love Ellie, we love," and
Oh,
it's
thank you.
amazing. Okay, I do wanna ask you a couple, like, a couple quick things. Well, maybe
Sure.
not, maybe one's less quick, but, you've done a lot since we last talked here
Yeah,
in this space. Your work on Jane Doe 4
yeah,
and Trump, it's drawn a lot of attention. So for people who don't know, can you tell us what it is about
yeah.
Jane Doe 4 that we need to know, and what's the most significant thing you think that isn't really, like, getting the mainstream coverage it deserves?
Sure. So Jane Doe 4 is a case that was actually much earlier than the other cases. It's from the early to mid 1980s. It is out of South Carolina, and it was a young girl whose mother was a realtor and worked in this place called Sea Pines Plantation, which is kind of like what we would think of as like Airbnbs. It's a lot of vacation homes of like the very wealthy. And so her mother was a broker and she did all the rentals and she told her daughter to, make a flyer for babysitting as we all did when we were kids in the 90s and 80s for her. And so she responded to a call and she was sexually abused by a man called Jeff. She told her friends, this happened on multiple occasions. She told friends at the time, she was vocal about it with her friends. And then when he was arrested in 2019, she didn't say anything because she wasn't a big like, she didn't watch the news. She was kinda, like, tuned out. But her friend approached her and was like, "Hey, I remember the story you told me, and this kind of lines up with what you were telling me. I remember you said his name is Jeff. I remember you said he looked like Lurch from the Addams Family, and I need you to like look at this picture." And she saw his face, and she was like, "I think that's the guy. Like, I really think that's the guy." And so she also had told her friend that she had been pulled up to New York City to be with like these wealthy casino guys, and one of them was Donald Trump. And this is something she had told her friend years and years and years ago. And at first, so she and her friend went to the FBI and they filed a report. The FBI took them seriously and sat down to interview her, but she would not talk about Donald Trump. Like she, at that time, the only picture floating around the internet was a picture of Epstein and Trump that we've now all seen where they're standing side by side. And she said, "I want you to crop Trump out of the picture. I don't want him to be included in this." And she specifically said that, and then they were talking about this case, and then she kinda got emotional, and she cut the interview short. And then sometime before her second interview with the FBI, she went back and talked with her friend, and she was like, "You need to talk about that situation with Trump because that was a really big piece of what you told me." And so she went back and she said that she was taken up there, and she was 13 or 14 at the time, and she was sexually abused by Donald Trump, and he had some kind of similarities to the case with Katie Johnson, which was a decade later, where he chided her. He did lots of, like, abusive language with her before he sexually abused her, and in her case, it was because she was a tomboy, and she remembered him making a lot of fun of her for that and how she needed to be more feminine, and he was just, like, really cruel and abusive, and then he also sexually abused her. And so anyway, long story short, the FBI interviewed her, I believe, 3 times. So she sat down for 3 very long interviews. And these interviews were maybe it was 4 times. I have to go back and look, but we had one of them in the files. And then some journalists at NPR discovered that there was like a whole missing section to this case. And the Post and Courier out of Charleston had written about it because they knew about it, but like it was totally missing from the files. And so they blew it up on the internet. They were like, "This is missing. This needs to show up. This is a case that was clearly followed up by the FBI multiple times." So they took it seriously. Where are these documents? And so eventually they gave us 16 more pages, but we're still missing, I think, 37 pages. The interesting thing about this case, it's really tough to investigate because it's so old and it's pre-internet and everything's archived, and so you have to really dig to figure out where it occurred, who was involved. But you can find things because, like, something that's really helpful is newspapers back then had social sections, and so you can find when people moved to town, where they worked, who their families were. You could find the deed to her mother's house because she said she moved in on this date for this amount, and you can actually find this house. And so, all these little tiny details that she gave about this case, the people, the places, were all accurate. She's like, "Look at this is my criminal history. This is my mother's criminal history. You can pull all those records. Everything is accurate. And the thing that we're missing is the actual rental record of Jeffrey Epstein, which is very, very hard to find." But the thing that is interesting about Hilton Head, South Carolina, is in 1981, they started something called the Renaissance Weekend. And now that is a huge event that has moved to the West Coast, but that was an event that brought in people like Diane Sawyer. It brings in celebrities, it brings in filmmakers, it brings in academics. And it started right around the time when Jeffrey Epstein would have been there, and they were the people he was very connected to. I have called them. They declined to comment, obviously. They say he was never there. Anybody involved with him was never there. But we were able to find out some of this detailed information about
How
the
could they
people that
possibly know, though? I mean, how
it's
can they
very
say that?
secretive. It's highly secretive. The guest lists are highly secretive. They don't talk about it. But like some of the information that I was able to pull together, the Post and Courier used in their most recent article, and then that was picked up, like, by the Daily Beast and the New Republic, and so people started talking about this case again, and it really does matter. It's significant because she was fully legally represented. She was interviewed 4 times by the FBI, and she was paid by the Epstein Compensation Fund for victims, and so, like, all these things line up to this having happened, but we're missing those rental records, which would have been by hand, right? They weren't digitized. And so I don't know if we can find them or if we can find a way that they exist, but like that is the key piece of evidence. But everything else lines up with this case. And so that has been something that, again, the White House denies, but it it's something that we wouldn't let go because more so than some of these other cases maybe that have popped up recently, like this one was very, very much taken seriously by the FBI, and so you have to say, well, then we need
Mhm.
those other 37 pages. Like, where are they?
Right. And are I know you've been in touch with certain lawmakers' offices, like, are
Mhm.
they working on that? Are they working on getting that?
You know, I basically my job is to, like, hand stuff off, but then I don't get information back, so I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know, but, like, yeah, I very frantically was like, "You need to pay attention to this. This is really, really important."
So we know that the former AG Pam Bondi is refusing to testify before Congress again despite that
Mhm.
subpoena. Do you think that she knows all of this? Do you think she knows all of the answers, or is there so much information it's impossible to know everything?
I wonder how many of the people who are working in that position, like Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, actually even opened the files because they just didn't want to. I would hope I would it's, like, kinda hard to say, I hope they know something and they're just not telling it versus, like, I hope they don't know anything. I don't know what I hope, but, like, I wish they had done their job. I wish this had been pretty simple, you know? I don't know. I assume she knows enough that's incriminating because that was the whole thing with her saying, like, the Dow is 50,000 points because that was neither a lie nor incriminating. That was just a random fact that she wanted to drop right there. Like, that's what that was. Because if she had had to answer any one of those questions, she would either perjure herself or she would incriminate the president.
Mm.
And she wasn't willing to do either of those things. She was probably told not to do either of those things. And so she just dropped random facts that had nothing to do with the questions.
The Dow. The
The
Dow.
Dow!
That was a moment.
Yeah,
That was a moment. Okay, I do have a viewer question for you.
okay.
Love Ellie, they say. They start with that. Can we please discuss how we can collectively put pressure on the DOJ to initiate these investigations?
I mean, a wall of information, right? We're seeing the effect the things that we're doing is having. We're watching right-wing media crumble. We're watching these people who have been staunch Donald Trump supporters just flail, and it's morally conflicting, I have to say for myself, watching people that I really, really, like, not only politically disagree with, but I find them to be the scum beneath my shoes. Like, people like Alex Jones, I that man is one of the cruelest, most heinous people, I think, for what he did with Sandy Hook and those kids who died at Sandy Hook. Like, he is a terrible, disgusting piece of scum on my shoe. Like, I will never be like, "Oh, we agree with each other and we're gonna hang out." But all these people who have been the backbone of the Trump administration in, like, the podcast bro realm, which is what carried him in the last election, they're all taking off. Like, seeing what was her name? Megyn Kelly lose her mind the other day
Yeah.
on Fox News, like, that's I mean, we have to pay attention to that. Not gonna hang out with her either, but, like, that is wild, and so the only reason that that is happening is because people have not let go of the Epstein files, and people are digging through it and showing information and making sure it happens, because if none of us were doing that, if nobody in this sort of independent realm was doing any of that, they would disappear like they've disappeared before. Nobody would talk about them, and we would just hope the DOJ is doing its job, but because the public was given these documents, and they hoped we wouldn't see things in them that we did, and they hoped we wouldn't figure stuff out that we did. Uh, it has they have lost a major empire that is the base of the MAGA party, and so I think I'm very hopeful with that. I think that that's the course that we need to continue to do is just like this onslaught of information, being as loud as we can, being as obnoxious as we can, because it's working.
Yeah. I think about that, like, the ripple effects, right? The domino effect of even just
Mhm.
getting Adelita Grijalva sworn in so that they could do the vote and vote for the discharge petition to put it for a vote in the House. I mean, it's just it's incredible how many hurdles it took to get those files released, and now the
And they're
hurdle of
incessant.
sifting through it all, which you're doing so masterfully.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I was really hoping I'm trying to
It's
text
okay. We
Jon
gotta
Tester.
get those peas. We gotta get those peas out. I eat
Another
peas. I'm sure you eat peas. We need the
Well,
peas.
these are okay. I'm going to try to relay the education I've received about farming
Okay.
in Big Sandy, Montana. One of our viewers did ask how the fertilizer situation is going to affect the Montana farmers. Of course,
Mhm.
so much of the world's fertilizer goes through the Strait of Hormuz. We know that's a problem.
Mhm.
Well, that's part of why he's planting peas. Is he plants these peas? They're not sweet peas, but they're certain sort of legume where he plants them and then he goes back over and plows them into the ground and they act as a fertilizer. And
Yeah.
so I think it's more cost effective and more nutrient dense, basically,
Yeah.
is what I think. Do I have that right, Ellie? Do I sound like I know what I'm talking
I mean,
about?
that sounds right, but I do know, like, just I mean, if you look at our family is wheat farmers, so we always pay attention, like, to the price of the bushel, and farmers, I mean, at this point in the game, farmers, it costs more to plant than it does to sell the thing that they plant. Like, that's just is what it is. It's been that way for a while, but it's obviously gotten much worse. The tariffs have just decimated the farming community. Land is basically worthless. The crops are basically worthless. And this is people's entire, like, generational income
Mhm.
and livelihood. Like, if you go to
And
Fort Benton, right, which
yeah,
is down the street from Big Sandy, like, Big Sandy is neighbors to Fort Benton. That's where my family is from. And when you go into town, like, people disappear because they are all farming. Like, kids are farming, their parents are farming. I remember when I was growing up, like, all my friends were like, "We can't play today because we have to harvest, and do you wanna come sit on the combine?" So I'd, like, go get on the combine, we'd harvest, like, that was a play date, you know? And, like, everybody's out there at, like, 12 years old driving these massive $400,000 combines. That is how much these tractors cost. So if you think about the investment of almost $500,000 into a tractor for somebody who's not making money off their crops, like,
yeah.
it's really, really bad.
Yeah, I know, and we're hearing it, and you mentioned generations, like, these farms get passed down from generation to generation, and it's
Mhm.
not so easy if I've talked to John about this a lot, like, if you lose your farm, you can't just start it back up when
Right.
conditions are better. Like
Mhm.
this is a blow not just to the people running it right now, but
Yeah.
generations later who plan to run it. So, okay, I'm going to have you help me close us out here because
Okay.
it doesn't look like John's coming back
I can
on.
do like John.
I hope. Do you have a hat by any chance in the car? Because
I
I
know,
have
I
a
was like, "I need a trucker hat." I was gonna try to get him one this summer when we go out there. I was like, "I should try to find him a Fort Benton trucker hat."
Oh, you should. You should out like any kind of funny hat. I'm always buying silly hats for him. I do want to tease that John and I, if he can he'll be off a tractor tomorrow. He's traveling. That's right. He and I will be on with Heather Cox Richardson tomorrow night, 5 p.m.
Oh.
Eastern. We're talking about money in campaigns, money in politics, the Citizens United decision, and this organization, and Citizens United. We've done so many episodes on this already, but it's a topic that Heather Cox Richardson has said she's really going to laser focus on because it's so
So good.
important to get some kind of solution to that Supreme
Mhm.
Court decision. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we have Senator Adam Schiff on the show, which might be a tractor episode. Um, but this is where I would ask you to show me your hat, Ellie. Do you have anything funny in your car?
I don't ha like, okay, so I have, like, a bunch of so I'm traveling, so I have a bunch of, like, old coffee cups that are
Yep.
all melted. I've got
Yep.
my rental agreement, I have my kids, like, gum wrappers, and yeah,
Like a
that's
good mom.
that's
That's like
yeah,
okay,
that
that's a
is
good
we're
mom.
traveling and trying not to destroy a rental car, that's the goal for the weekend.
Well, I think that's a good goal, and I hope you have a wonderful trip. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining us. Thank you to everybody who joined us for this chat. I'm sorry we lost Senator Tester so quickly into the conversation, but
It's
he's,
alright.
he's
Is
got
what
work
it is.
to do. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. You can shoot us an email at groundedpcast@gmail.com. Thanks to Ellie, thanks to Pearl Jam, and thanks to all of you for letting us be part of your day. We'll talk soon.